Crystal Stokes here with Get Stoked, a podcast with real and raw conversations with leaders of all types, business owners, managers, executives, and more. Get stoked by their honest and insightful stories and key takeaways that you can use to improve your leadership abilities. Now, if you find this podcast helpful, please subscribe and share it with others. Your support and feedback really makes a difference. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. Hey everybody, Crystal Stokes here, and I am with Jeff Deckman, and he is a fellow coach, and he specializes in conscious leadership. Jeff, I'd love to pass the mic over to you and have you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Crystal. Well, I am an accidental coach, visionary, and leadership guy. I never thought my career would take me where it has led me. So my background is I didn't do well in school. So when I got out of high school, I became a lineman and a tower worker and in the cable television industry, and had some pretty quick success in that, and started my first company when I was 26 in the cable television industry. And that went pretty well for 7 years, had offices in 4 states, and then it crashed. So I experienced a company bankruptcy just when I was married. I had a 2-year-old daughter and a son on the way, and just lost. We had to liquidate. I mean, it was just brutal. So I really learned a lot about stress management. I learned a lot about finance. I learned a lot about a lot of things. So then on the other side of that, I was given a choice of either, hire on somewhere and get a job. I was well known in my industry, or start another company. And starting another company felt like a fool's errand because I had just blown one up accidentally. But then I thought, and I something came to me that I've used many times in my career since, making tough decisions. And it was, I realized if I decided to get a job, I would probably never start another company. But because I had a daughter, I had a son on the way, so, I'd have to have stable finances. But if I started another company and that failed, I could still get a job. So I thought one choice allowed me to keep both choices. So that's what I did. And that company really struggled for many years. But after about 9 years, it finally took off, and I sold it a week before its 21st birthday. And that was a telecommunications networking company. And the reason I sold that was because I had a real passion for leadership and entrepreneurship. And I had already built my company, and it was more managing, and I'm not a manager. That doesn't excite me. So I told my partners one day that I was leaving. I had 75% of the company, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was, walking out of that meeting thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just decide? Because I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just knew what I couldn't do anymore. And that's a pattern in my life as well. I don't always know where I'm going, but I know where I can't stay. So the challenge with that is, am I willing to just kind of sell myself out in due time, or take a risk into the unknown? I call it jumping off the cliff and building wings on the way down. So what happened in that was another interesting decision-making process. Was my entire identity was being president of this company and in this industry, and I was leaving all of that behind, didn't know what I was going to do. And it came to me, a good coach of mine once said, don't ask questions based on fear. Ask yourself questions based on love. And what I realized was I was looking at all the things I couldn't do. I couldn't start another new company in the same industry. I couldn't. And then I asked myself, what would I love to do? And the minute I got out of my head and into my heart, like that, the ideas started coming. Mm-hmm. And what came to me was, I would love to work with other men and women who are looking to start and build a small business. And I would love to help them go through that with so much less stress and aggravation than I went through. Because that's my passion. I love that community. I'm a member of it, small to medium-sized businesses, and I just think those women and men are heroes, and I want to support them. And if you're a parent who has their own business, you're teaching your children that having their own business is an option. They're not just stuck in a job. So that's what I did, and I struggled for many years with that. I wasn't a consultant. I didn't know how to sell thinking, And but I hung in there because it was a passion, and I really didn't give myself an escape route. The thought of going back into working for somebody wasn't really an option, and I didn't want to build another big company. So I started getting some ideas around. About 2 years into it, I became a partner in a think tank, and we started looking at where was business going. We're out of the industrial age. We're in the technology age. What changes are happening in leadership? We have the 5 most independent-minded generations in the history of humanity in the workforce. None of them want to be told what to do. So that was pushing against all traditional leadership methods. So my passion became looking at what are the new leadership models. And we have the command and control top down, and that worked well in the industrial age. We're not in that level of consciousness anymore. Right. So I started looking at conscious leadership, empathetic, compassionate, collaborative, still holding people accountable because you have to have stuff done. And, very long story short, I developed an 8-step leadership program called the Bigger No Principles of Conscious Leadership. And the bigger no is about, you know what you know, they know what they know, and together you have a bigger no. Mm-hmm. And that collective genius is the most valuable resource that you have in your company. It's more important than money because that genius makes you money. So if you value human capital, you will make, and you do well with human capital, and you know what business you're in, you will make the financial capital. So there's a whole fundamental shift, and I help people go through that. So as I was working at that system together, I started trying to write a book about it. And at 10 years, it just wasn't coming out. And then in 2019, I decided I'm going to write a book around conscious leadership. So what I did was I wrote this book. It's called Developing the Conscious Leadership Mindset for the 21st Century. And what it is it's 52 lessons. And the idea was you take 1 or 2 a week. And it's a workbook. And what you do is each chapter is a page. And each page is a very specific thought on conscious leadership. And the premise that I take is, on the first part of it, is leadership is a state of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And people won't follow you because you tell them what to do or you have more power, et cetera. They'll do what you tell them to, but that's not following. Mm-hmm. Following is very different. And what they'll do is they will follow you based on the level of consciousness you have. And there's a lot of different ways to approach this, but the easiest way I've found to think about it, remember it, is I talk about leading with air. And, you find yourself in situations in leadership where you're not quite sure what to do and, where are the guidelines and what have you. So AIR is an acronym for authenticity, integrity, and respect. And when I'm in a situation I'm not quite sure what to do, I ask myself, am I being authentic? Am I selling myself out? And being authentic doesn't mean you get to be a jerk, right? It means like I'm just being authentic to following my heart, and I can pass the pillow test at night. I can go to sleep with who I am. Integrity is about, am I being that in the world? Am I being a person of my word? Can I be trusted? And respect is 3 parts. Respect myself, respect the other person, and respect who's paying us. Mm-hmm. So I found that if I come with, am I being authentic and am I having integrity and am I respecting myself and them and the organization, that gets me out of my ego mind and puts me into my elder mind. Mm-hmm. We all have this inner elder that is sitting there. The ego talks a lot and chats, but it's the elder that guides.
I'm going to loop you back to something because I'm framing this. I'm thinking about the people who listen and they're in some kind of leadership role. And part of your story that I think is really relatable, I think most of us go through that sort of dark night or multiple dark nights within our profession where we feel misaligned, where we don't want to do it anymore. We're clear on what we don't want to do, but we're not sure what we do want to do. And oftentimes when I speak to people in leadership positions, they've been trained and sort of learned just through modeling behavior, the top-down leadership approach. That I'm in a position of authority. I often have to wear a mask. I put on my leader mask and I run this team or run this company the way I think it needs to be run. And it doesn't feel authentic, and it's not in integrity with that person's values. And it may not feel respectful either. So I think that this AIR model that you're talking about can be a litmus test. Say, let me check in and see where am I on each of these metrics, and would changing that help me feel more grounded and good in this leadership role?
And it's really scalable. And by that, I mean that if I'm making business decisions based on authenticity, integrity, and respect, when I start bringing that into my consciousness, and that's the expectation I hold for myself in business, what happens is we're the same person when we go home. Mm-hmm. And that bleeds over into that. And if you can really start to work your way and take it easy on yourself. It takes a while to transform and to shift. So, fall off the bike, but get back on. If I fall out of integrity, I get back in integrity. Mm-hmm. And as you do that, it'll start to transform who you are and how you engage both home and personally. And the other thing is it's also transferable to the entire organization, where your culture becomes, we are an organization that is authentic, has integrity, and respects. So it's very transferable. It's very simple, which is what I like about it. It's simple, but not easy. Mm-hmm. It's simple, but not easy. And you'll have some really interesting personal discussions within your head, because ego and elder, you know who's winning.
Oh, I know. And
you know who's winning.
I think it's also, what I like about your model, the authenticity piece really speaks to me. A lot of the work that I do is helping people cultivate their own leadership style, to not have to adopt something that's been handed to them or that they think is the right way, but to really explore what would your unique style be. Some people are a more direct approach, some are more passive, some are more supportive. Like there are models that talk about leading from the side or the back or within or from the front. There are just so many different ways to have language around leadership. But I think even that alone, cultivating our own language and an understanding of what leadership means. What does this word leadership even mean? And your book, bringing consciousness to this, also really appealed to me. I think that's part of why we were introduced to each other, that we were having similar perspectives and asking similar questions about this space of leadership and how we can be most effective in supporting people that are in these roles.
And your personal style of leadership is also affected by the industry you're in. Leading construction companies is very different than leading nonprofits. I've done both. Very different than leading political organizations. I've done those as well. But you can go in and you can be in those environments that have different energies to them. And you can function with different styles of personality that fit within your space, but is effective in there. Without losing your soul. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you can't lead yourself, one of the things I talk about in the book is the first step to the path of leadership is an inward one. And so are all the rest. And what I mean by that is, if I can't lead myself, if I can't manage my emotions, I can't expect to be an example or to help other people, or let alone have an expectation of someone else to function at a level of consciousness that I can't. And my work is not about kumbaya. It's not about hugging everyone.
As a psychotherapist too, a word that I've always, when I learned this phrase, it really tickled me: emotional contagion. And that's where, let's say, I walk into a room and the central emotion I am giving off is anxiety. Like I'm anxious and I'm stressed. I'm like a live wire. When I walk into that room, that there's a contagious factor to that, where other people's nervous systems are like, ooh, priming to mine. So as a leader, if I'm stepping into a situation and trying to lead my team from a place of anxiety or frustration or stress, well, we can just go ahead and start predicting what that effect will have on the rest of the team. Whereas if I can practice some emotional regulation, calm myself down, get grounded, take a few minutes, come into a meeting more centered, with more optimism, with more hope, with a presence of warmth, of openness, compassion. What kind of result would I get then when I'm speaking to the people around me?
And there is science that speaks to that. Mm-hmm. So for instance, I talk a lot about that in my book, is that, human beings are highly sensitive social creatures. And we read all different levels of communication, what's said, what's felt, but we also have energy fields. You're probably familiar with heart math. And they talk about the energy fields that go out, and we're all like tuning forks. So if you go in with anxious anxiety, you're sending that frequency out into the world, and everybody else around you is feeling that. And it starts like a tuning fork. This frequency will get this frequency, start vibrating towards it. So there's these competing frequencies. So my anxiety has a certain energy to it. We call it a mood. My peacefulness has a certain energy. We call that a mood. So what I really use a lot, and I'm a Reiki master, and I've studied energy healing and that type of stuff. So I've familiarized myself with that type of stuff. Is I'll go in and I'll purposefully get a read on what's going on in the energy of the room. Is it anxiety? Is there a fight or whatever? And I bring the counter energy into that, and I hold that. And again, that's me coming in as my elder, not my ego, because my ego is all about that, right? So there is actually science based on that if you go in and hold that level, it's like everybody's having a good time, and Eeyore or Frowny the Clowny walks into the room and it's a total buzzkill. It's like, dude, get out of here. Or if everybody is depressed, they think we're going to lose, and somebody comes in and, Tom Brady, let's go. And it moves people.
It does.
Well, that's Jeff, a crucial part of leadership.
On this note, what are the central challenges that you're seeing? Like when you're working in the leadership space, regardless of the industry, across the board, do you notice commonalities in the central challenges?
Yeah, most problems come from ego, fear, uncertainty, and especially lack of communication. One of the biggest problems in leadership today is just a lack of communication. Communication is the lubrication. It keeps the gears going. So what I do is I talk with leaders and I say, look, you're too closed down. This command and control top down has created isolationism when in fact we're tribal creatures. Your organization is a tribe of tribes, right? They just get in different departments. So what you want to do is you want to communicate with those people. You want to communicate in advance of, if you're looking to make a change, you want to get their input. You want to turn it into conversations and not worry about giving up power. Because if you can engage them in conversations, you're engaging their mind. If you're engaging their mind, you're engaging their heart and their effort. And now everybody starts feeling closer. They become more loyal to one another, and they're more productive, and you're going to be more profitable. Oh, yeah. And you'll create a culture of where there will be a positive peer pressure, where the people will hold themselves and one another accountable because they won't want some Eddie Haskell coming in and ruining what they have.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So can I add something to that? I want to get your opinion on this. I wholeheartily agree that I see communication to be a major challenge. And when I'm trying to work with that, something that I've found to be very, very effective, I say, well, so how do we improve communication? What is a foundational piece to communication? For me, 101 in my book is a sense of trust and safety first.
Oh.
That needs to be fostered in order for anybody to communicate. So I like to work with various modalities, modules to first build that sense of trust and safety within the team or the tribe. And then from there, start practicing communication, because guess what? It's hard and you're going to mess up and we offend each other and we say it the wrong way, or we're too passive or too aggressive or whatever. So that to make it like a fun sandbox experience where we can fail and play and try. So I want to get your opinion on that, or see, I don't want to get you off track. I know that you're talking about the central challenges, but communication just is very interesting to me. And I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, I think it's essential because it's the most powerful tool the leader has that is external to them are the words that we use, how we use them. And that's all part of communication. And, what you say, how you say it. And if you're coming from a place of authenticity, integrity, and respect, and you're given some tools, it's not enough just to say, okay, we'll be this way. It's like, okay, well, how? So you give them tools. Now somebody has a tool, they'll start to use it. And as they use the tool, they'll get better at it. And they'll want to use it more because they see how it works. Mm. And almost, one of the big things that I do in companies I go into is I tell people, when you're going to change the way people work, bring them into the design conversation. Mm-hmm. Say, hey, we're looking at changing this from here to there. This is why. This is what we're looking to do. What do you think? And you can't go wrong with that. Number one, they feel accepted and respected. And if you respect me, chances are I'm going to respect you and maybe even like you, mm-hmm. right? And that's what you need as leader, trust and affinity. And, when you bring them into that, you help them co-design it, and you're going to get their ideas because you don't see everything that they see. And the other thing is, if you have to get buy-in from someone, you went to them too late. Yeah. So while you're going through that process, you're getting the best ideas, you're getting engagement, you're co-designing it, and you're eliminating escape routes, because on the other side of it, if there's problems with it, people can't blame one another. It's like, okay, well, we didn't do it right. Let's us do it right again. And it bonds. Mm-hmm. That's what keeps a tribe together, the bonding. Org charts, command and control isolates. Isolationism creates competition. Mm. Communication creates collaboration, creates a bond. And I've had some companies where we've hardly had any money and we were in desperate times, but we had a strong bond. Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Oh, I love that one. I need to break that down.
And it does. I built my whole career on that from the time I was a young manager. So, and that culture is nothing more than just creating an environment where people come into it and they know they're not going to get thrown under the bus. Mm-hmm. And they know they're not going to be backstabbed. And that happens in organizations. But as a leader, you need to be a stand for going in and clearing that up. Mm. Leadership's not about managing people. It's about managing conditions. I tell people, if I have to manage you, I have to fire you. Like, you're an adult. You probably have kids. You bought a house. You know how to do stuff. So what I'll do, though, is I manage conditions to make it a good, productive work environment. And then I respect adults enough to know they come in and they know how to play nice in the sandbox. As long as I have a healthy sandbox, if it's toxic, who's doing that? And let's deal with that. Mm-hmm. And it's either, come around and play nice in the sandbox, or we're going to disinvite you from our sandbox.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, let me ask you, I remember earlier when we were chatting, you used this WAIT, W-A-I-T, in terms of listening. I wonder if that might be something that would be helpful here in this conversation about leadership and communication.
Yeah, that's perfect. Communication is not talking and telling. Communication is bidirectional. It's transmit, it's interpret, it's retransmit, it's receive. And what happens is, and I'm really guilty of this, that's why I needed this thing so badly, is I'm a lot of output. And in a leadership position, leadership's a lot about listening, because I want to hear where you are. I want you to know you're being listened to. And if I listen to where you are, I can understand better how to communicate with you, where you're off, where you're on, whatever. So what happened for me is I always want to interrupt. And so I have an acronym, which is WAIT. Every time I feel the urge to talk, I resist the surge. Feel the urge, resist the surge. So WAIT is an acronym for why am I talking?
I love that.
When I feel that urge and that surge, I just go, why am I talking? And half the time I'm impatient. I have something I'm excited about saying, whether they're excited about hearing it or not. And it's just another one of those tools that helps you to modulate yourself. Mm-hmm. Leading with air, weight, those types of things just help keep me centered. And because I'm either an ego mind or elder mind. And those things remind me, they help me to shift over into that elder mindset.
Okay. On that note, how about this? When I listen to podcasts, I love when people give me like tips and tricks and things that I can just use right now. So for you, all this experience you've had, do you have any habits or routines or practices that really help keep you at your best that you can share?
I look to be as consistent as I can be, and I accept that I'm human and I forgive myself, but I hold myself accountable to get back on the bike. So I know, just the fact that I'm trying to ride the bike, I get credit for that. And if I fall off, that's okay. There is no failure. There's only lessons. So what class did I just take? I use that all the time. What class am I in? Whether I'm getting a daylight speed out of me in life, I just go, life's not doing this to me, it's doing it for me. What class am I in? I had cancer back in 2016, stage 4 cancer. And I looked at that as what class was I in? And the minute I shifted that, it turned that whole experience into much more purposeful, meaningful, and spiritual. And I grew from it. So I just take that and I apply that. So if I fall off the bike because I was out of integrity, what class was I in? And then the way I pass it is I make an adjustment. And I know I'm going to fall again, but so what? Just stay in the game. Hold yourself accountable. Be forgiving yourself. This is a tough place to exist. The world's really hard. So have compassion for yourself, because if you don't have any compassion to give anybody else, and everybody needs that. So fill it, get yours, so you have something to give. And at the same time, hold yourself accountable. And you will love who you are and who you become, and you respect yourself. Now you can respect others, and that's really essential.
Oh, that is really beautiful, Jeff. I'm going to practice that. And in my world, what we call it is fill your cup, and then from whatever runs over, you serve to others. I think that's a beautiful thing. A practice that really helps me every day is every morning I check in with myself about my intention for the day. It's sort of like an alignment check of living this day intentionally, just having something, one very clear thing that would entail for the day. And at the end of the day, I do a check-in with myself and ask, did I align with that? And I keep it simple, just one thing, whatever that might be. That day, it might be something on self-care because I'm pretty exhausted. Or maybe that day, it's really about being very attuned to a conversation that I have on my calendar, being really present, or, whatever action I might, want to focus my energy on. And then the recheck at the end of the day, bookending it, and just, again, like you said, have compassion, because we don't always nail it. We don't land the jump every time. We don't stick it. And that's okay. That's how we learn, is through error and trial and failure. But I love your optimism and your energy to just keep going, look for how life is our teacher and what we can learn from it, and stay in integrity as much as you can.
And the other thing is, if you're feeling bad about what you did, that's really, we have a tendency to feel bad and then feel bad because we feel bad, right? And we're the judge, jury, executioner. But the bottom line is, the fact that you feel bad is a good sign. There are some people doing really bad things and they don't feel bad about it. That's not good. The fact that you feel bad about what you did, your pilot light is lit. And then what are you going to do with that? Can you, do better? Can you apologize? Can you make amends? Can you just, the best apology is changed behavior.
Absolutely. Right? Hear, hear.
Like, just be gentle with yourself, but move yourself forward. And
yes.
Otherwise, if you make it too punishing to deal with your mistakes, you won't want to look at them.
All right. I got another juicy, kind of rapid fire question for you. Do you have any type of, superpower skill that has gotten to where you are today? It's been really helpful, but it could be something that actually holds you back when it comes to moving forward in your life.
I am incredibly curious about what I don't know yet. And I'm an accidental visionary. I can see things evolving before they're actually, so that if I didn't have to make any money, that's what I would do. And what happens is, that's allowed me to do this innovative work. And I've won international awards for the new thinking that I've put together. The book was won 4 awards. And so that really works there. But I also have shiny object syndrome too. I can get excited about that. I'm chasing squirrels when I should be here finishing this great idea, which is really great. And I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. That looks interesting. So,
I know so many people listening to this are going to resonate with that.
Yep. Yeah. It's that shiny object syndrome. And, it's a hit of dopamine. It's fun and exciting. And, my whole life has just been about transition and moving forward. But, yeah, but I'd pay that price for the life that I've been able to live and put together. And, I could have made a lot more money working for people, but I wouldn't have had as much control over my time.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people worked, many, many years just to try to get to retirement. I have nothing to retire from. My life is doing what it is that I love to do. And I've been an entrepreneur, and like I said, I could have made a lot more money doing some other things. I'm doing fine, but in the technology business, people were making tons of money. And I just chose to working for other people, and I just chose my own path. And, entrepreneurialism is one of the most powerful spiritual journeys I think anybody can ever take, because it's so challenging. It tests you. And if you're going to eat your own head, you're not going to be in business. But if you can be resilient, and another thing I learned is nobody can ever, 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 ever make me give up. I can choose to stop doing something, but no one or nothing can ever get me to give up. And when I learned that was so empowering for me. Mm-hmm. Because, I can choose not to do something, and that's not me giving up.
Exactly. The language, right? Like, language is so important, how you say something and how it lands inside. And to bring this to a close, I want to just touch on what you said around, your choice to go your own way, to not work for other people, to be an entrepreneur. I think being a time rich is one of the most important things that we can ever have. I often talk about in these episodes that I was kind of born existential. I from a very young age was thinking about my ticking clock and death and other people's ticking clocks, and very aware of the currency of time, and that there's no amount of money that is as precious as time, and you never get it back. My dad used to say, imagine I put 100 pennies in your hand. You'll never have more than 100. And everything you decide to do with your time, you're giving a penny away. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. So choose carefully that the things you spend your time on, the people you spend your time with, are truly meaningful. This whole idea of waiting for some imaginal retirement phase, it never made sense to me. And I know it's an okay model for some people, but I appreciate your bravery and your willingness to do what you've done, that you may not have been as money rich as you could have been, but you're much more time rich, purpose rich, things that touch your heart. And I really do want to encourage people to check out your book, because it's one of those things you put a lot of love into. That's you showing up on paper. And if there's anything you want to leave off with today, and also how people can connect with you, because I'm sure after hearing this today, they're going to want to know more and to check out your book.
Yeah, what I'll say is I wrote the book a couple of years ago, and I've read it several times since, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. And I almost can't take credit for writing it, because it was such a download that came to me. And I go back and I wouldn't change a single word of it a couple of years later. You read this book, it will take you through a journey of personal transformation. You'll love yourself more. You'll see the human in the human more. And you'll just become a happier person and a better leader from the inside out. And, you can go to my website. It's jeffreydeckman.com. You can find the book on Amazon, and it's a self-study thing. Like I said, it's a workbook. But, my whole passion is about helping people to find a way where they can be at more peace with themselves, so that they can be more peace in the world. And if you're a leader and you're at peace, you're helping to breed other peaceful people. And that's what we're here. We're not here to make a bunch of money and make things worse. We're here to help one another. We're here to grow, to find the peace in our heart, and to contribute to that. And I choose to do that through my career and helping other people understand how to find more about what's going on in themselves and live that way without feeling like you have to put on fairy shoes and float around. My stuff's really grounded, but it's also very, very heart opening. Yeah. And there's not a platitude in there. Everything that's in that book, I've lived, I've learned from, I've made every mistake, and I'm putting my lessons in there to help people shorten their learning curves.
That is, I'm already sold. Like, I'm going to be on Amazon checking out your book already. I love your website. I love everything that you represent. Our conversations here in the podcast, as well as offline, have been really impactful for me. I'm really glad that we met, and I look forward to having you back again for round 2.
I'd love to come back, because I really want to support what it is that you're doing, because we're both doing the same thing, and you create a whole different avenue. And the last thing I'll say for your listeners is I do a training course, self-study training course on this thing. So anybody listening, they can get a give a 20% discount on the course. You can go on my website and you can find it, but just send me an email, mention this podcast. And it's not about the money for me. It's about the message. And it's a great message. That book has healed me more than I think anything that I've done.
All right. So you all heard him. Make sure you go to his website. Right there is how you can contact him. Just shoot him an email, mention this podcast today. You can get that self-study course. You can dig in, go on this journey. It'll be a 20% discount, and it's very generous. And thank you again, Jeff, for being on today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been an honor, and thanks for letting me to contribute this way. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.